The following was recorded during the COVID-19 pandemic through Zoom meetings in accordance with local health guidelines. Hi, I'm Mike Maloney, and welcome to another CSRM podcast. Today's episode is hosted by Andrew Fouts.
Hi, and welcome to another CSRM podcast. I'm Andrew Fouts. I'm the Director of Digital Resources here at CSRM. And today we are here with Kenny Thomas, or KT as he's also known. And he's here to talk about something that he has started doing within his ministry at Third Street Community Church that can help you also during this pandemic time, and as everything is still up in the air about returning and sanitizing and masks and all that other good stuff. Some of you may recognize him. He was also on the latest Tuesday Talk, which you can go back and watch on the Overwhelming Victory Facebook page, as well as the CSRM YouTube. But Kenny, welcome to the CSRM podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So to start with, KT, go ahead and just share a little bit about your ministry background and what you guys are doing right now.
Well, I started at Deliverance Christian Church. I was the youth pastor there for the last 10 years, starting in 2020, January of 2020. I came over to be the sports and youth pastor at Third Street. So ministry-wise, it's pretty much where it starts and ends. I kind of got brought into the ministry of youth in general. I was doing sales and cell phones for Alltel and Verizon and things of that sort. And it was a blessing financially, but I really wasn't getting anything out of it as a person. And I started off going to help out Sarge at Hartford Middle School. And Dr. Womack was the principal at that point in time. And Robert Easley is Sarge. Sarge really kind of took me under his wing and started showing me how important it was to kind of be there for our youth. At that same amount of time, I was also transitioning into kind of wanting to do something more at our church. And then it all just started to go down in a snowball effect to where I was at Hartford more and I was around the youth at the church more. Then the church asked me to be youth minister at that point in time. And then at the same time, I was starting to volunteer at the middle school and then starting to volunteer at Allen Elementary School. And the next thing you know, I'm working at Gibbs and quit my job at the cell phone company. And then it's been all youth and all sports since then.
Some of you may recognize the name Third Street. We've had a lot of podcasts actually dealing with the church as well as people on it. Actually, episode number 2 that we released about 3 years ago was with Garrett Price, who is Kenny's predecessor, actually a sports minister there. You guys actually, as a church, were built around sports ministry, sports leagues, the Martin Center, which is the community center that hosts you guys as far as services and things like that. So talk a little bit about, you said you started there January 2020, and then March 2020, the governor of Ohio shuts everything down. And you are the sports guy, you are the youth guy, and those are the two things that require interaction more than anything else. What was going through your mind as the new guy trying to establish himself, and then the governor shuts all your programs down?
I can remember it like it was yesterday, literally. Corey called me. We were starting our basketball league, and our leagues are on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights. So on Tuesday, it hit the paper, the Canton Repository, that the first COVID case was in Canton. On Wednesday, we have our first day of our basketball league. And on Wednesday, Corey calls me and he says, hey, I'm pretty sure tomorrow's going to be the last day that we're going to be able to do the league. Don't shut it down tonight. don't let anyone know that we're going to shut down tomorrow until I let you know that that's the direction that we're going in. But it's not looking good. And I want to say on Thursday morning, that's when we, as parents, were starting to get emails from the school letting us know, hey, go ahead and keep the tablets. Go ahead and keep your book at home and start preparing for being at home and not at school. And by the end of the day on Thursday, I was getting that text message from Corey saying, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last day of the league. So my thought process originally was really like, this is going to be a couple weeks. This is going to be a couple of days, and we'll be right back at it. It took a while for me to recognize, like, no, this isn't going anywhere. This actually could be the new normal. And that's when it started to get kind of scary, and you kind of now think out of the box because you're like you said, the sports minister with no
sports.
I used to be the sports minister where what I didn't say is at Deliverance, there was a period of time where I was over sports as well. But we would have to think outside of the box because at one point in time at Deliverance, all we had was a building. But then God blessed us to take over the Jewish Center. And once we took over the Jewish Center, then now all of a sudden I have this gym, and they even have, the swimming pool. You have all these things. So then I transitioned from that to 3rd Street, and you have this gym that's already occupied, leagues that are already running because Garrett was running everything so smoothly. And now you're back to the sports minister with no gym again. So it was awkward.
So what was it? Because out of everybody that I saw, at least their responses, things like that, and we talked a little bit about it during the Tuesday talk, as well as some of the COVID conversations that we had back in May, which again you can go back and watch and listen to. They're all archived. What was your plan going forward? I know you said you were thinking out of the box, but what exactly what did out of the box look like? We talked to some sports ministers where it was literally, well, we're just taking a break. Some of them were worried about their jobs. How did you go about it?
I think the blessing in this point in my life is the fact that I have kids. Sometimes when I say I have kids, like I have my own children that live in my house that are the same age as the kids that I'm asked to pastor. So it wasn't difficult for me because I was coming home to a group of middle school children and watching what they were doing, what they were enjoying. And a lot of the kids who were coming to our middle school nights are kids that were already coming to my house. And that didn't stop when the pandemic started. So one day you are sitting there and you're thinking, like, what can I do, as you hear all of this noise coming from my man cave, and I go downstairs and there's 8 kids down there playing a video game. And it's just like, well, it's common sense. They love video games. So just get them where they're at.
Now, this is something where for you and I in our generation, video games aren't unusual or anything like that. But you and I also were in the generation that started with the video games and everything like that. And I remember at least there were certain people, certain churches that were like, oh, you got to keep these kids away from the video games. These are the devil. This is Mark of the Beast type stuff, all that kind of stuff. And now here we are, 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, and you turn to the video games to try to help keep the ministry alive and going and growing a little bit. What was it that you used to kind of incorporate it? Certain systems, games. What did you guys start out with, and also what was the reception with it? How did other staff respond? Obviously, we know the kids loved it because, like you said, they were already doing it. Other adults, things like that. What kind of give us the breakdown of how you went about doing it and how other people responded?
I have 2 philosophies when it comes to anything that I do. It's to consider how I feel about it, and then consider if my feelings are going to come across as disrespectful to someone else's feelings. So I'll first say my feelings about it. My children are allowed to play any video game that they want. I feel like their belief, the belief that they have in God, the relationship that they have in Christ, isn't going to be altered by 45 minutes of Fortnite or 22 minutes of a gory, bloody battle on Call of Duty. That's my own personal feelings, and I respect that other people do not feel the same way that I do. So when I looked at the video games, I looked at it in a strategic way, but I also looked at it in a biblical way. So strategically, Call of Duty was probably the best game out at that point in time. And even me and Corey were playing Call of Duty together at that point in time when all of this was happening and we were stuck at the house. But I also knew that certain people's parents were going to look at that movie or look at that game, and even if they didn't know that the game was what it is, that they would be respectful in the fact that if Kenny says that he's doing it, then let's let our kid do it, not knowing what the game is, and then actually seeing it and being like, oh, I would never think that Kenny would allow for, my kid to just jump into that type of, violence. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. It's going to be very difficult to try to educate every parent on how I feel. So the best way for me to choose a game is a game that if I turned it on, my grandmother wouldn't be like, why are you playing this? The only games that really leaves you with is sports and some like kiddie fun games. And when I looked at the games that my kids already had, that left me with NBA 2K and Madden. So Madden was kind of older at that point in time, and 2K was a little bit newer than Madden at that point, but it was the end. It was the ending of basketball season. It was like right when they were saying no more basketball for the NBA. So we decided to go with NBA 2K. To my knowledge, no one has ever, staff, parents, or otherwise, said anything negative about our tournaments and how we came about trying to do ministry with video games.
That's awesome. You kind of actually walked us through already with your thought process. Dr. Linville has talked in the previous series that he did with author Stephen Liggins out of Australia, walking through the biblical sports paradigm and how we determine what sports are biblically appropriate and defensible, what sports aren't. Those of you that are interested in more, you can check it out in his book, Christmanship. It was the first book that we released through OVP that Dr. Linville wrote. But, we walked through, and we can talk about this more maybe in another episode, but, the main things are, is there a redemptive purpose to it? Are the rules biblically based? Can we defend these rules biblically? The Call of Duty thing, we probably could in terms of, us, war is biblically defensible in some situations, not in others. So we could, argue those rules being enforced. But the main ones that you just hit on were the last three of how are the mentors reacting during all of this? How are the participants acting in all this? And how are the spectators going to act? And that's one of the things I think scares people a lot, especially with, Call of Duty, is you hear a lot of things, you see a lot of things on Facebook and YouTube of people playing, and you hear the comments coming from multiplayer. Those things are, for those of us that have always been in a sports realm that's a little bit more competitive, a little bit more, and especially, us being in the area that we are of Canton and who we deal with doing sports, we hear that kind of stuff all the time, even during basketball. For other people that, and so that's what I think your thought process, even though you're saying this is, just how you were going about it, is actually a very good way to look at even how do we decide what we do in all these things. So you went ahead, you started out with NBA 2K. You guys ran it with both PlayStation and Xbox. You guys even offered a cash prize for the tournament or anything like that. What did you see as far as with the kids? Obviously, we know they loved it, but how did the ministry connections keep on growing, get bigger, get larger, or did you see a little bit of shrinkage with the reception from the kids in doing this?
Actually, we were able to minister to kids that I've never met before, people from cities that were not even remotely close to Canton, states outside of the state of Ohio. For the kids who are used to 3rd Street, essentially what we always do on a normal, let's say Monday, is we come in, we have an hour and a half of just straight out playing basketball. We'll normally go eat 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll have a word. We'll have something positive. We'll bring forth a message with scripture. We'll do that for like 10 minutes, and then we'll hoop for the rest of the day. So for the kids who are used to Third Street, they're used to there being something with sports and ministry put together. For the people who may not have had any interactions with Third Street, but just were connected with somebody or connected to somebody's Facebook because it was shared a lot, and they just got on by happenstance. I didn't see anybody go on mute. I didn't hear anyone say anything disrespectful. No one said anything or typed anything in the chat, and we did it multiple times. And by the second time that we did the tournament, I would say even more people were on time and prepared for what they do first. Because when we did the league for the video game, we can't do an hour and a half and then stop and then do a message, because an hour and a half in, half the people have already been kicked out of the tournament. So the way that the rules were created, where you have to be online and receive a message to be able to play in the tournament at all. So maybe it was because some of the people tried to get on late the first time and they weren't able to be in the tournament. So by the second time we did it, everybody was on time to get that message.
But anybody that has ever done youth ministry knows the fact that you're able to get kids there on time in itself means that God is ordaining something, because it's impossible to get them there on time for anything, especially something that's either you're in or you're out type of deal. So if churches listening to this, sports ministers, youth ministers listening to this are saying, hey, this is a good idea, this is what may be the key to getting us through this last little bit of lull before, either new normal is established or we get back to the way things were. What does a church need to be able to do this kind of a ministry?
I'll say two things. One, if you're going to do the video game ministry, I would say you have to have a video game yourself, or you have to be willing to go to where someone's going to have a video game. Everything that I did was done on the chat board on the video game. So I didn't call 50 people and have us all on some type of conference call or Zoom call or anything like that. We did everything on the platform, the PlayStation 4 platform or the Xbox One platform. And my household had both of those platforms, so it made it very easy for me to do that. It didn't make it very easy for me to do that, but I was able to do that. So that would be my first suggestion, to make sure that you have the platform and that you have the video game as well. It was fun. I actually joined the tournaments. I made sure that I want to say I made sure that I didn't win, but I actually just wasn't good enough to beat some of these kids.
Not to ask how that went for you, but
I made it far in the tournament, but I didn't win. I wasn't going to win. If I would have got to the championship, whoever was in the championship, I was going to play them and just let them win. Not like let them win the game, but they would have won the cash prize regardless of whether they won or lost. But I ended up losing in the Final Four. The second time, I recognized how hard it was for me to play and be the administrator, so I didn't play at all the second time. But another thing that I would say about just this trying time, because we're about to start something new and try something new now, still trying to meet the kids where they're at. So I know the kids love Fortnite. I know the kids love Call of Duty. I know my kids love Fortnite. I know my kids love Call of Duty. But I also know that I'm not going to allow for my kids and the Third Street Sports Ministry to do a Call of Duty tournament. So what we decided to do is we decided to just turn Third Street into Call of Duty. So here in September, we're going to purchase the dart guns, and we're going to build capture the flag type tournaments, and the other different type of tournaments that you have, like elimination and all those different things that they have in Call of Duty, and some of the same things that they do on Fortnite. And we're going to allow for the kids to just come and do those things in person. That way, even more so, we can talk to them about the difference between life and the video game, the differences and the reasons why it is okay and is not okay to behave in the fashion that you see in your video games, and what it means to have a CCWs and carry your gun and all that other different types of things. And then on top of that, what the Bible says about, I don't want to say weapons, but
violence. we know where you're going with it. So I like what you said there. Obviously, you've got to know what you're doing. For those of you listening, this is very similar to any advice that if you were to consult with us here at CSRM, we would tell you need to do before having any kind of other sports ministry. You've got to have something to be able to do it. You've got to have an audience that's you're able to meet with it. You've got to establish what it is that you're actually teaching them. Building your community up, doing the discipleship practices. This is a very good example of the evangelistic disciple making that we preach here within CSRM, of making them feel like they belong before trying to make them believe something. If you're interested in possibly looking at doing something like this, you can contact us at csrm.org, or we can get you in touch with Kenny. He can give you some more information as far as ways that he's gone about it. Kenny, you also have started a web series during all of this called Guys on the Couch. Give our listeners information on what's going on with that and how they can find you.
That one was kind of weird. I have some men in ministry that do not go to my church, and I love these guys, and I wanted to basically just have conversations with us on Zoom. I was doing the same thing with Corey and some guys at Third Street, and we weren't, actually recording these and putting them out for everyone to see. But after our first 30 minutes of sitting down and having a conversation with each other, with these gentlemen, it started off with just 3 of us and it grew to 5. We decided that this would probably be something that would be fun and funny. Even though we're men of God, we're kind of goofy. So we thought it would be kind of like a comedy show. And the first episode that we had was directly after a lot of the violence and things that we were seeing in America. And it turned from these 5 goofy guys to these 5 men of God very quick. And we had a very good reception of it. And we start kind of like adding visitors, and now it's grown to what we call our own, ministry, to where we try to not only have the show for people to, scheduled looking at or look at after the fact, but we also are trying to gather financial resources and blessings that we can do to give back to our community, because we're all living in the city of Canton.
Awesome. So we're out of time for today. Kenny, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your heart. Thanks for sharing this awesome, not really new method of ministry, but newly accepted method of ministry, especially during all the confusion and chaos going on around us. Those of you that are interested, you can check out KT's other interview that he did during the Tuesday talks, talking about the COVID comeback, where he talks a little bit more about some of these other things as far as how his church, Third Street Community Church, is getting ready. You can check out Guys on the Couch. It's on Facebook. We're going to link you guys up to, if you go to the new website for CSRM podcast, which is overwhelmingvictory.org. It's where you can find all of the CSRM resources together: Overwhelming Victory Press, Overwhelming Victory Flicks, the CSRM podcast, as well as a new podcast network that is up and coming. We'll link Guys on the Couch there, as well as how you can get a hold of Kenny if you want more information on what he's doing, how he's doing it, and how to start it yourself. So Kenny, thanks for coming on. Hopefully we'll have you back for some more discussion, and we'll talk to everyone else later.
CSRM's podcasts are a resource provided by the Association of Church, Sports, and Recreation Ministries and its production house, Overwhelming Victory Flicks. This episode was produced by Dr. Greg Linville and edited by Andrew Fouts. For more information about CSRM, visit csrm.org. For more information about Overwhelming Victory, visit overwhelmingvictory.org. For CSRM Podcasts, I'm Mike Maloney. Have a blessed day.